It's time for City Beat, your source for all the latest news on the City of Thompson. Only on 102.9 CHTM, your radio station.
I'm Monika and this is City Beat. Joining me today is Deputy Mayor Penny Byer. Thank you for joining me.
Glad to be here.
If you have a question for Deputy Mayor Penny Byer, call us at 677-8181 or email us at CHTM@arcticradio.ca to start what's been happening around the city.
Well, to start off with, we're going to start with something safety related. It's Fire Prevention Week. I think most people know. Rick Morris from our fire department has the fire prevention trailer going to all the schools. And if you've never been in there, try and get Rick to take you through it. It's really interesting. But it's to teach children at a young age about fire safety. But for us, adults, especially those of us who are in charge of smoke detectors, I'm assuming and hoping everybody has one or more in their houses, and now is a good time to change the batteries. So that's my safety share for that.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I'd like to bring up right off the bat, because there's been a lot of talk about the waste disposal grounds and their hours of operation, etc. Just let people know that for the long weekend, the grounds won't be open, but they will be open every Saturday till the end of the month. So if people still have some last ditch cleaning to do, they'll still have some Saturdays to clear it out to the waste disposal site.
For sure, allows people to kind of clear things up before winter comes. Now paving, the paving crew is in the city. Cree Road is nice and open, which I know a lot of people are happy about. And I've heard that the city is doing around 50 different spots of paving. Tell us how you guys decided and how it's been going.
Well, some of these spots that they're working on are repairs from when water breaks have occurred and you've had gravel in the road and that sort of thing. So what the city does, the employees, they prioritize in terms of traffic flow and safety issues. If it's near schools, that sort of thing, they prioritize them, and hopefully we'll get all the work done. But when the paving crews say they can't work any longer, they can't work any longer. So we're trying to get as much work as possible out of them.
Yeah, and hopefully the snow kind of stays away for a few weeks so we can enjoy those nice smooth roads for a bit.
Yeah.
Now, in regards to capital projects, I'm curious for next year. Have you guys started discussing, have any ideas of what we'll tackle for next year?
That's tied to our budget process, and I think what's happening, well, I know what's happening right now is the wish list is going around. So everybody's compiling what they would like to see as priorities. That will, the city again will cost them out and take a look at where it fits into our long-term plan for repairs, our priority plan. Also tie it into the next round of water lines that are being replaced, because you don't want to fix a road and then the next year dig it up to put in a water line, of course. So all of those things will have to be taken into account, brought forward to the budget process, and that's when we'll know for sure. Right now, I can't. I can tell you what some of the items are on the wish list, but I can tell you my wish list. Yeah.
All right. Well, good to know. I guess we'll keep our eyes on that. And also in regards to capital projects and when the city, does tendering, I have a question from a listener, and they ask, when Thompson has projects that can't be handled in-house, how does the city handle tendering them? And does this way ensure that all local businesses who might be interested have a shot?
Okay. Yes, we have a procurement policy, and it's handled through our procurement officer, of course. Tenders are sent out, and they're advertised locally on a site called Merck's and elsewhere if required, and it's open to anybody. So yes, our local people also have. The price is not always the only factor of selecting a supplier or a contractor. There's other things that take into account in terms of their availability. Can they meet our deadlines? All things like that. So, yes, the short answer is yes.
Yeah, and then you just went over some of the criteria. So it isn't necessarily always the local price, and it's not necessarily always local as well. Then, right?
Not necessarily. Yeah.
Okay.
Although we do try to give preference to local.
For sure. Now, at Monday's council meeting, there were 2 resolutions that were passed, which now make the Thompson Recycling Center a standalone board once again. What's the significance of this?
Oh, I find this really exciting. Exciting because what it shows is there's been a lot of hard work, a lot of concerted effort to get the recycling center into a sustainable situation. And so this is like the scorecard. This is the A+ on the scorecard. They've achieved that level. They're in a sustainable position. And the fact that they're now on a standalone board says now we have more community involvement again, more people from outside of the immediate circle of council, and there'll be more input from the community. And to me, this is really exciting. And just to make sure that things are clear, part of the reason why the recycling center got into some difficulties is when the city went to the garbage and recycle bins, that increased their product coming into the recycling center to a point where they had to change their mechanization and make all kinds of other changes. It was an overwhelming time for a volunteer board, which was dwindling at the time. If I'm not mistaken, there was maybe 2 or 3 people left on the board when all that was happening. And so that's a big load to put on a volunteer board. So that's why the city stepped in, and that's why I'm excited to see it back as a standalone.
Go back as a standalone board for sure. Now, a quick reminder to our listeners, if you have a question, you can call us at 677-8181. Now, at Monday's meeting, another thing that was passed was the second and third and final reading of the organizational and procedural bylaw. I know some of the bigger changes include a new communications committee and the possibility of establishing an Aboriginal advisory committee. I've spoken with Mayor Fenske about the changes before, but now that it's been passed into law, I thought I'd ask, what do the changes mean? What's the significance about?
Well, you'll start seeing the changes. They'll be slow, unfortunately, but in November, when we announce our appointments to all the committees, that's when you'll see the communications committee for sure populated. I'll speak to that one first. I think if ever I hear any overriding complaint about not just our city but other municipalities, it's the communications don't seem to be working. I never heard that. You didn't tell me. Nobody let us know. When in fact, information is being shared, but somehow it's not being as effective as it could, and especially strange in a period when we've got more ways of communicating than ever before. So the Communications Committee is going to look at policies and strategies for making sure communications with employees, with residents, with suppliers, other stakeholders like that, has a framework for success, and that's measurable. So if it's not working, we'll say, okay, this is what we have to change. But also part of that communication strategy is, people look at us from the outside a certain way. We want to manage how they look at us. We want to be telling them how they should be looking at us, and there's ways to do that in how we communicate about ourselves and how we monitor things. So that's part of that. From the Aboriginal Advisory Committee, I think I'm looking forward to seeing how this works. The structure hasn't really been developed yet, so that's going to be the first part. That'll take a little bit longer to get going. But I think when you're sitting on the traditional lands of the Situation Cree Nation, when you have a population that is 50% Aboriginal, when you have all of the issues and concerns that still are yet to be resolved. Some people say, well, that's federal problems. No, we live here. We're all neighbors. So I think the committee will be taking a look at pulling in as many grassroots people as possible, and it'll look at not just relations. It'll enhance our accord, not just look at relations, but other ways that we can respond to things that come at us from the federal government or whatever else. So.
Okay. Now, you mentioned budget for the municipality, establishing that, but also the province is now establishing their own budget. And I've heard that Minister of Finance, Greg Dewar, is going to be in Thompson today. In fact, I think you're meeting him shortly after, and he'll be, I guess, chatting with council, talking about what we or council thinks the province should be spending on, how they should be spending the money. So what issues do you plan on bringing up?
Well, I think the first 3 will be infrastructure, infrastructure, and infrastructure. After that, there's other things that we need to talk to them about. It's things like some of the formulas that are used to give money to municipalities. Formulas, lottery for one. That's a big one. And also where the monies are distributed and how they're distributed to what kinds of agencies. So I think that will also be one that comes up today. And I also wouldn't be surprised if we get into a conversation about some of the things that were part of our TEDWIG process. for like the Restorative Justice Center, that sort of thing. So we'll be hitting on those. When I talk about infrastructure, though, it's not just within the city of Thompson. We want to see that road to Churchill built. We want to see other roads develop throughout the region. So.
All right, it'll be interesting. Also, this coming up is the North Stars. They're going to be playing, I believe, their home opener for their 31st season. And are you going to be going out to that game?
You betcha. Yeah, they're playing the Brandon Wheat Kings, and I'm looking forward to this. I get to bring greetings. It's the first time I brought greetings at a North Stars game, so I'm looking forward to that. And not having children in the hockey world, I'm always trying to catch up on the latest, what I need to know. And I've been informed that we've got some excellent players on the North Star this year, and that we're looking to start off with a superb year. So that's also very exciting.
That's what I've been hearing. That's the word on the street. Now, before we wrap up, what else did you want to touch upon?
Just a couple of things. Manitoba Hydro has been changing our street lights to LED lights. Kind of interesting because Thompson was the pilot to test those out, and so I guess it worked. So when you see Hydro working on lights, please slow down, give them a little extra room. But speaking of lights, we're also been trying to get some lights installed on the north parking lot at the TRCC. That's been delayed for reasons that we don't have control over, but we're assured it'll happen by the end of the month. So fingers crossed. In the meantime, I realize how dark it is, and if people could just use extra caution, especially at night when they're entering and exiting that parking lot. And then just, the fall transition in general, it doesn't matter how well lit the streets are if people are dressed in black, which we tend to be wearing black a lot. We're hard to see. So I think just a heads up that as it gets dark earlier for both motorists and pedestrians to be a little bit more aware of that and assess their risk a little bit, like don't dart out, that sort of thing. What else was I wanting to... two things, if I can. Mm-hmm. Seniors and Elders Month, and we are having a luncheon for seniors, but I also notice in your information here that there's a seniors health fair on October the 15th. Yep. So I'm going at the TRCC gym, so I encourage seniors to make sure they attend that. The other thing is next week, Mayor Fensky and I will be going to the PAW for a Boreal Summit. It's based on economic development, and it will be including stakeholders from all parts of northern Manitoba at all levels. So we're looking forward to seeing how that's going to develop. It's the beginning of what will be a very long, thorough process. So.
Do you have an idea of what sort of things would be covered in there?
Sustainability. Preservation of the boreal forest, economic development, respectful relations and partnerships with all forms of government, whether it is Aboriginal governments or municipalities, federal, provincial. Basically, it's to build a blueprint for how we can develop successfully and sustainably, and all be on the same page.
Okay, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. And also, we talked about North Stars hockey, but also residents will be able to soon go on the rinks as well?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. The Recreation Department it's in its transition to winter as well. And after the long weekend, both rinks will be open, so that we'll have full use of both rinks once again.
Great.
Gordon Beard will be up. So.
Great. Well, that's this edition of City Beat. Thank you for joining me, Penny. Join us next Thursday around 11:30 for more on what's happening around the city and City Hall. For 1029 CHTM, I'm Monika Gould.
City